Polish Stories, podcaście dla cudzoziemców i cudzoziemek uczących się języka polskiego. Jeśli kochasz książki, filmy, seriale telewizyjne i opowieści o ciekawych ludziach, zapraszam. To miejsce jest właśnie dla Ciebie. Odcinek 21. Etai opowiada o swoich metodach nauki języków. Dzisiaj zapraszam Cię na drugą część rozmowy z Etaim. Najlepiej zacząć od pierwszej części, więc jeśli jeszcze jej nie słuchałeś, nie słuchałaś, to zacznij od odcinka 20. Rozmawiamy po angielsku, bo polski Etaja nie jest jeszcze na takim poziomie, żeby mógł elokwentnie przekazać to wszystko. W tej części skupiamy się w dużej mierze na metodach nauki języków obcych. Etai uczy się przede wszystkim na słuch i opowiada o tym, jak to u niego wygląda. Rozmawiamy też o tym, czym jest płynna znajomość języka i czy w ogóle coś takiego istnieje, o barierach w komunikacji i o sztuce tłumaczenia. Zapraszam. And I wanted to ask you as well about something, well, obviously related to languages, but a bit different. So I know that your ways of learning languages is primarily auditory. This is how you like processing things. You are the voice messaging person. you like communicating yes. with voice, with recordings, and as well with listening. So how can you tell us more about your ways of learning because I read a lot. I love listening. I absolutely love audiobooks. I love language podcasts, but I remember words much better once I see them written. So I'm just wondering, I'm very interested by your approach.
So, and it's interesting because I don't know if I wouldn't have this disability and the condition, the spasticity and the muscle tightness that I have, if I would have been naturally an visual or auditory or kinesthetic learner, but because and this is again how the body, I mean, we all adapt and the body is tremendously adaptable, and in this case I adapted. So I told you earlier that the kind of the disability that I have is called spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy, which means that my muscles are so muscles can either be on or off. They can be tight or they can be loose, right? My kind of cerebral palsy is one where the muscles are always tight, and we have muscles everywhere in our body. Otherwise, we couldn't do anything that we do, including, by the way, in our eyes and in our in the throat and so on and so on, and in hands and so on. Now, so for me, and this I found out, I discovered that this is also probably to do with the disability. I have what I have come to understand and explain to people as a visual tracking problem. Now, how do I explain it? A visual tracking problem. The best way I can explain it is that if I am sitting still and there is an object that is moving relative to me, I cannot follow it with my eyes. Or if I am moving and the object is sitting still, I miss it. So for me to visually track things, right, is very, very difficult. So you can imagine, take a book, whether you're looking at it today, who knows what a book is anymore? We have screens, we have Kindles and other things that we're reading from. But okay, so take a screen, right? You have lines of text on a screen, and in order to read those lines, the eye has to track the line, right? My muscles are I can't control when my muscle will be tight and when it will be loosened, and how my eyes will be in any given moment. But what happens is that my eyes start to jump.
Mm-hmm.
They jump around on the page. So I'm reading a line, and all of a sudden, I will. It's hard for me to stay focused on the one line, and this is because of the visual tracking issue, right? And similarly, for me to type something physically is, I can do it. I do it when I absolutely have to do it, but it's much easier for me to speak like I'm speaking now.
Mm-hmm.
Now this becomes a challenge when we start doing things like, I don't know, learning languages, because there are, as most of us, especially those of us who are listening to a podcast like this, most of us know that there are at least 4 elements to learning a language, right? We have the listening, we have the speaking, we have the reading, and we have the writing, right? And so for me, because of the disability and because of the visual tracking issue, and because typing is also takes a lot out of me physically, I started to compensate. Again, the body adapts, right? So I became, and again, whether I would have been this way naturally or not, I don't know, right? But I'm very auditory. The things that I pick, that I hear, it used to be better when I was younger and when things were less stressful in life. But people used to say you have a memory like a steel trap. What you remember sticks. and so I would, and that's how I learned. I would, I remember and I retain it that way, and so my passive, well, everybody's passive skills in language are naturally going to be higher, better than reproducing it. But I have my auditory skills in language are probably higher than the average person, because again, I had to adapt to to learning it, and it, for me, it's not so much how is something spelled, which is a good thing, because if I were to try to learn a Polish word based on how it's spelled, even people who can read Polish, this is Gosia's territory, but if it sounds right to me, and this is how, by the way, how I learned grammar this way. If it sounds right,
I find it fascinating, because I'm not that auditory. I wouldn't remember. That's amazing.
Yeah. See, now, but learning grammar in an auditory way is dangerous, because what happened, people speak, and they make mistakes, not huge mistakes, but native speakers, are making mistakes. The der, die, das in German, that's not something you can learn. That's something you that it's der Tisch and not das Tisch. How do I know it's der Tisch und nicht das Tisch? You learn it, but and whether it's der, depending on the case, it can be dem Tisch, it can be dem Tisch, right? So if somebody is making a mistake in one of the other cases, and I'm using German because German is one of the ones that I actually can understand a little bit better.
Just for everyone who's hearing Etai for the first time, his German is excellent. It's like near native level of German. So don't. He's he's very humble, but yeah, his German is great.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. No, but so if you learn it from if your main source of picking up grammar is from native speakers, you have to sort of you sort of go from a you sort of take it for granted that what you're hearing is correct grammar
Mm-hmm.
in the world.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. I mean, yeah, we can we can be understood even if our grammar is not 100% accurate, right?
Yeah.
So grammar is, but for me, it's if it sounds right and if it feels right, okay. I can't. My German and my Hebrew and my English and to a certain degree my Romance languages are good enough to tell you, wait a minute, if I hear something that's off, I can tell you that that doesn't sound. There's something. My Polish is not there yet. Like I said, it's a Tarzan Polish, but
But you do have a good. You do have a feel for lots of things. Like that just doesn't. Yeah, doesn't sound right, even if it's
A feel, yeah. I mean, look, when I listen to Polish, and let's use this podcast as an example, right? I listen to there are several sources where I take my Polish out and I sort of dust it off, and this wonderful podcast is one of them. So thank you for this on behalf of all of us who are struggling to take our Polish from Tarzan to something a little bit above to Jane Polish, right? So let's go from Tarzan to Jane, right? So when I, for example, listened last week, you had or whenever the last podcast episode, the conversation with Heather, who I also know very well, right? And that was in Polish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keep in mind, I know some of her story. We haven't been in touch in a while, so things for her have changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to. I know enough. I don't know exactly what you said there, but I know enough Polish to follow basically what you said.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean by I can make somewhat educated guesses in Polish. Would I like my Polish to be much better? Of course I would like my Polish, because I'm a perfectionist. But so this is my level of Polish, right? Lauren has now it's changed a little bit in its format, and there are less of this, but the TV club that Lauren has, a wonderful thing, the best thing since sliced bread. And
let me just jump in here and explain to people who haven't come across it. So this is a language TV club which both myself in Etai hosted, me in Polish, him in German, and that was in during the pandemic, and within a couple of years later, that was quite a big thing with a lot of clubs in Italian and German and French and other languages. It kind of that was run by Lauren Williams, and she kind of scaled it down a bit for various reasons, including some her personal life is moving on. But that was that.
Although I have to say, and I thank you to all of the group, the German group that keeps coming back. The German club is still happening, and I'm preparing a series now in German
We'll
as well.
put it in
But
a show.
yes,
We'll put it in a show notes.
Yeah, it is scaled down. But yeah, one of the and Gosia, we did how many did we did at least 3 series together?
Three in Polish, right? We did 3. Yes, we did 1 season of Znaki, and then 2 seasons of Roist.
We did of Roist,
right. Two seasons of Roist. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was there, and I there was a lot better Polish around me, but I listened, and I kind of I followed it.
And you were participating really well with the way how I think what helps with any language really, and depends on the level, because if people are very fluent, then they don't have to do it. But I definitely did one time when I participated in the German club, which was amazing. That was the longest sentences in German I ever expressed. But the way how it is done.
To be fair, though, German sentences are notoriously long. So
yeah, and you have to wait till the end to make sure all the words are there and all the prefixes and stuff.
Yeah, the German sentence starts at the top of one page, and 2 pages later it comes to the end of the same sentence. So, yeah.
Exactly. But what helped was that they are always questions about because the club works that every week you watch 1 or 2 episodes of a series, and then there is a discussion about that. But what is prepared by the host are questions related to this episode. And so
and
if
vocabulary
yes, exactly, and cultural notes. So if someone needs to prepare really, because they wouldn't be able to have a conversation like, off the cuff, then you can really prepare, even write down if you need, or, just whatever method you use, record yourself, write down, whatever, the answers to the questions, which will make it easier for you to actually participate in speaking, and also to understand the whole what other people are talking about, because you know the main points what the person is talking about. So yeah,
you basically, it's like I said, when I listen to the conversation that you have here, whether it's with Heather or with somebody else, I somehow, and don't ask me how, but my Polish is good enough to understand basically what you're saying.
Makes sense, absolutely.
In a very basic way. The same thing with the TV club. So what I would do, for example, with the Polish, and this, it frustrated me only because my Polish is not at the level of my German, is not at the level of even my French, which is rusty. Right? So, and for me with languages, languages is one of my happy places and a playground. So if I cannot express myself in a language, I kind of become, we all become frustrated, but it feels like I become especially frustrated, right? But
we are the club of perfectionists, so yeah. I get that.
Exactly. So I would exactly like you say, I would actually, I would write, and this is how I would. I think there's a technique that you call laddering, right? Language laddering, where you learn a language based on another language that you already know better. So I would take the questions that you would put in Polish. I would put them. Forgive me, but I would put them in Google Translate, which is a translate. You and I
it's
translate
things
also. So
it's good.
It's good. It's good for that purpose. But as a translator, But if you want to properly translate something, stay away from it.
Employ a person. Us.
Employ us. Employ a human being, please. We would like to get paid for our skills. Thank you very much, all of us. We all deserve that. But yeah, so I would put the Polish question in Google and translate it into German for myself, and I would translate it into German. I would answer the question in German, and then it translated back into Polish. So this way I was, again, and that's the language laddering technique, I think is what they call it. I wouldn't, and I don't ever, because it's not fun for me to translate from English to Polish. I don't know why, it's not fun. It's more fun for me to translate, from Polish to German. And so that's how I did it. And how I would participate. I don't know. I don't remember how I participated, but the things I said, people seem to understand a little bit. So it was okay.
Absolutely. And I think that's also a good example that it's worth getting a bit out of your comfort zone, as obviously not excessively, not to make yourself stressed, right? But to just get out and to be brave and to try to even participate in things that are maybe a bit above your level, but you get. It is intellectually tiring. I remember this German language club. It was like I just had to. You cannot switch off even for a second, because you lose track completely what's going on if it's not a language you can dip in and out. You just have to concentrate. So after like an hour and a half, you are so tired. But at least I am.
The brain definitely feels like a wrung sponge. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but it stays a lot of.
You're using parts of the brain that it's a neural network that you're not used to using. So
absolutely,
it makes sense.
But it's actually quite helpful to just take part in things that maybe seem a bit too difficult, but it's worth trying. And obviously it depends on the person. Some people love meeting with other people and talk about TV series, and some people would hate it because they don't watch TV, or they are more introverted, and actually it's too stressful maybe to talk to people live. But there are so many various programs and methods of teaching and groups for various languages that it's definitely worth exploring what's good for you and for just try. And what's with like, and also what I just thought now that I would like to highlight the thing, how, from what you were saying, how wonderful it is when you got support from your family, especially as a kid, that yes, you are great, you can achieve things, and not listen to people who, well, in your case, were saying, oh, he's not going to be, he will be disabled and he won't achieve this or that. But your parents were like, yes, but you're great intellectually, you are great emotionally, you are great in languages. And that pushed you, like, you have like a couple of master's degrees as well. So you did not only languages, but also university degrees with using more of auditory skills than probably writing, from what you're saying, right?
And maybe we can talk a little bit about this, because I think I mentioned it at the beginning. A lot of what I do I have we were laughing about this earlier, but I don't like to watch myself on camera, and and yet somehow one of the things that I have, and one of the ways that I put myself out there is a YouTube channel. Go figure. There are many contradictions that people experience. This is one of them. I can't look at myself in camera. I have a YouTube channel. I don't understand it. Don't ask. But one of the things that I talk about a lot, naturally, on the YouTube channel is disability and disability advocacy and things like this. The interesting thing is that until I became an adult and until I went out into the world, right, I wasn't even aware. It wasn't even in my consciousness that I was somehow disabled. I only became aware of of the barriers that existed in the world, because all of a sudden I wanted to do something, go somewhere, take part in something, whether it's an event or whether it's some sort of academic program or whatever, and all of a sudden I couldn't do it. Or I one of my degrees is in counseling psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I figured at the time, okay, counseling psychology is good because it involves sitting and listening to people.
Yeah.
People have always come to me, and it's a strange, wonderful thing, but they talk to me. I mean, I know I talk a lot. Believe me, when people talk to me, I let them talk, and I know it's hard to believe, but they would come and they would listen to me, and I said, to myself, I said, all I have to do is sit and listen. I can do this from wherever. I can I can make an office in my house, and I can do this until I die.
Yeah.
Fine, great. In theory, it's wonderful. Problem is that even to become a licensed counselor or a licensed psychologist, yeah, you take the coursework, you do the coursework, and then you have to do a certain number of internship hours in order to fulfill the requirements before they can give you a license. You have to work with certain populations of people, and which is fine, it makes sense. The problem is that if I one of the populations of people that you have to work with is with children, and you have to go to the children. The children cannot come to you. You have to work with them in their environments where they are. You have to work with them in their house. You have to go with them to a playground. You have to play with it.
Yeah.
And because of my disability, it became inaccessible for me. I couldn't meet the requirements of the licensure because I couldn't get to the places where I had to do the internships. And if let's say I could, the physical requirements of doing the internship, because there are requirements that you have to work with more heavily involved, people who are in facilities, right? Where you have to restrain people of things like where it's a matter of safety. These are things that I can't do. So it's one of the things, and this is one of the things that hit me the most, is my parents growing up. Yeah, you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want. I was convinced, and so were my grandparents convinced that, and this is why, for example, the idea was that when we went to the States in 1980 was that we would go to the States, I would become cured of this condition, and we would go back to Israel and live. Now, my grandparents were so convinced that I would become cured that they built us a house in which they lived until they died, with all the stairs in the world. Everywhere you could look is stairs. I mean, hello, me and stairs, good. But the joke is I would say, they were so convinced that I could do anything I wanted. I would just, the belief was that I could sprout wings and fly up the stairs and fly down the stairs. And later as an adult, and this is the source of the frustration, I realized it's nonsense to do this. So yes, on the one hand, it's good, right, to believe that you can do it, but there has to be some sort of a balance, a little bit of realism also. We cannot all sprout. Even the most talented of us cannot sprout wings and fly, not yet. But they were convinced. So I didn't really know that it wasn't a problem for me. It wasn't something I had to encounter really until I went, and tried to live in the world as a person, and who wanted to do things, who believed that I was taught I could do anything. So it's good, but there's also the other side of it too.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
it's complicated. Yeah, so it's. But in terms of being able to have a positive belief about languages and things, without that, I don't think I would have. Without having it really, and I became convinced that I was good in languages, so I became good, with languages. Yeah. So,
yeah, no, but so what is your
now mindset thing?
Absolutely. But yeah, of course, and there is a it turns out in real life there is a limit, but I think it's still worth having the beliefs, because you do hit the wall at some point, but you wouldn't be even close to this wall if you didn't have the belief in the first place that you can do it.
Right.
Right.
And it's and I went, and the reason that I was able to do, you mentioned the several degrees. The reason that I did that was because there was just an assumption and a belief and an expectation that I was good in school. Learning in school always came easy to me. So of course, degrees was something I could accumulate, and I did.
Yeah.
And you talked about it earlier, but how did I do this? Especially, there were a lot of books on at the time. They were on cassette. There were these things called cassettes a long time ago.
Yeah, I remember them too.
You actually sent me. It's sitting here. The Anne of Green Gables in Polish. It's wonderful. Thank you. On
cassettes. I had it. I loved it when I was a kid, and we had this conversation about audiobooks, and I said, well, there is not. It's not even an audiobook. It's like an audio theater sort of thing. Adaptation
it's like an audio play. Yeah.
Audio play, and Etai was really interested, and I said, well, the problem is I can send it to you, but the problem is it's on cassettes, and who now has the player for cassettes? And he was like, I do.
Yeah. But that's how, especially when I was in undergraduate, that's how I navigate life through what I hear. So and that's how I got through a lot of the end of term papers that I did. I got really lucky. The professors allowed me to speak them into a tape. I didn't have to write them, because if I would have had to write them, I would never have finished the course on time. But that's how I finished it. I would listen to the reading material for the course, and I'm so auditorily based that now, and people and even my wife and people around me are how do you do this now? If I don't listen to audio at the normal speed, I listen to it as fast as not as fast as I can, but very, very quickly. And people are like, "How do you read it?" I've trained myself to do it, and but that, again, adapting it, right? Adaptation. And so I would listen to, and I a lot of what I did was I studied in humanities. I studied history. I studied literature, and especially at master's levels, when they tell you, they tell you to read 2 primary sources in time for a lecture, and a primary source is not 20 pages. These are 2 500-page books. as a primary source. Never mind all the literary criticism that you have to do, right? So as a primary source, you have to read War and Peace, and then in a week you have to be able to talk about it. The only way to do this is to do it quickly. So you learn War and Peace as an example, right? But you learn, or I learned, Thomas Mann in German.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. That's a good example. Magic
Mountain. Magic Mountain. That's Autorką, right? Huge book. Fascinating book. Huge book. Huge. We read it. And I had to discuss it. And the only way to do this is to do it quickly. You have to inhale books. In academics, you have to inhale books, and then so I learned to inhale auditory material this way. And to this day, I can't listen to anything, or unless it's music, to anything auditory normal speed. When people are talking, doesn't matter what language. My ear doesn't. It doesn't work. It's too slow.
Oh my God, this is amazing. I mean, there are very few people in terms of like the people I listen to, as in like podcasts, for example. I can think of a couple of people who speak naturally, slow enough that if I put them on 1.5 speed, I'm still all right with them speaking. Everyone else is just like artificially fast, and I just can't process it. That's like, but this is amazing how different we are in our processing input.
Yeah, but look, there are certain languages that are naturally faster than other languages. For example, somewhere I heard that the fastest language at normal speed, I think, is Japanese.
Maybe.
And after that is Spanish.
Spanish now, sounds like a very fast language.
Spanish is very, very fast. Now I understand enough to get by, but even I have a hard time. I mean, I listen to it fast, but I have to concentrate with Spanish. With Japan, I haven't gotten to Asian languages yet. I'm still battling Polish.
Yeah, but, what is more difficult, Chinese or like Chinese, Japanese, for example, like Asian languages, or Polish or other Slavic languages? It
depends.
Good question.
I mean, it depends who you ask, and it depends what their native tongue is, because
of course,
for somebody from China or from Japan, from Korea, they have a really hard time with not necessarily with understanding English, but there are certain sounds that they can't produce.
Yeah.
And so it depends, and this is which is, and you'll see on YouTube all the time, the hardest language to learn is who says, who are you asking?
I think it's mostly the ones which it's from the English speaking person's perspective. The ones, if you see which language is the most difficult, it's usually the perspective on an English speaker.
Right. But I mean, I understand that, and those of us who study languages understand it, but those videos are driving me insane. It's like it's like the question of fluency. What in God's name is fluency?
Yeah.
There is such a discussion in the polyglot community of fluency. To this day, I don't know what it means. Am
Absolutely,
I fluent in German? Am I fluent?
Well, yeah, I think you are fluent in German, but it's in a way level. I kind of like, it's also the question, what do you need this language for? Because there are people, and actually you've got sometimes translators. I know of a woman who is a literary translator in Polish from English, and she absolutely hates having to take part in like meetings with authors, for example, publicly, because there is an assumption that if you are a translator, you also be a kind of interpreter, and your English, for example, is if your language, the source language you translate from is English, that you can totally have a natural conversation in English. But she's actually an elderly lady, so she was also learning English years ago in a much different way than people learn now. And she doesn't speak as well. I mean, her understanding of English is excellent, but she cannot speak in the way that she would like be an interpreter for an English-speaking author, for example, on a meeting with readers, for example. So yeah, and I can imagine people who just, for example, want to read books and they don't really like talking to people. So because the fluency is usually measured by speech. If you are fluent if you can, have a fantastic conversation about anything with people. But what if someone doesn't need it or doesn't want it?
Or it's a particular topic that you don't know much about. So,
exactly. There's so many things I can't say anything about in Polish because I just don't know at all. You don't talk about the biological cell in something exactly,
like that. It's not. And I just you were talking about. I just want to be, because this is a fascinating thing, and I want to be clear that translating and interpreting are two
different things.
Yes, they have to do with language, and they have to do with taking from one language, putting it in another language. But those are two completely different things. Those are two completely different exercises. Just because, like you were saying, just because you can be the utmost translator of I don't know who and forgive me because it's the only example that I have, right? And I know that J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter lately has been, so forgive me, but it's the only example I have. But the person who translated Harry Potter from English to Polish must be a really good translator. Doesn't mean, and I don't know who it is, their name right now, I don't remember. Doesn't mean that they can interpret. Doesn't mean, because it's a completely different exercise. It's a completely different part of the brain. There's a completely different skill set. But you're still talking about taking from one language and putting it in another one. Completely different skill set.
Absolutely. So and to be honest, writing translation, and especially I think literary translation, but any kind of written translation is a lot. To be honest, mostly you need to write well in your own language, in the language you translate into. This is the most important thing in that. I would say even more important than knowing the language you are translating from. Of course, you have to know it very well, but you have to be a master of your target language, which is very often mostly your native language.
Absolutely. Translation is an art, because I want to be very careful, but from my perspective, if you know the language well enough, anybody can translate word for word. But just because you can translate word for word what it says on a page doesn't mean, especially with any written text, but especially with literature, you have to get the flavor. You have to get the meaning, the essence of what's written on the page. And if you can't, and sometimes that means using words that are not used in the source language, but those are into the target language. But if those are the words that you need in order to get a flavor of what's written in target language over to the source language, over to the target language, you use that. This is why it's an art. It's an art that, as much as I love AI and all of this, these are wonderful things. I haven't met an AI that is good at the art of translating, as good as a good human translator. Translation is an art. So is interpreting, by the way.
I hope so. I hope, to be honest, I hope that we will, not still, because you're saying you haven't met an AI yet like that. And I really hope we won't.
You and me both. But I mean, it's, there's something about the human consciousness, the human touch that for the moment we haven't, and like I said, I also hope we won't, but for the moment I haven't met an AI that can do that. AI is very good at what it does, but they're not human yet.
Yet.
and please, they shouldn't become. But but translating and interpreting are two very different things, two very different skill sets.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. It was a wonderful conversation, and that's probably going to be the longest episode. Well, definitely the longest to date, because I'm not going to cut anything out of it. So people are for a long listen.
I babble way too much. Feel free to cut, but but thank you. It's an honor. I hope. I never know what I say before I'm going to say it, and all I can do is hope that I made some sort of sense.
You made a lot of sense, and I hope people will feel inspired, although the conversation is in English, not in Polish, as usual, although there was an episode with Marissa as well in English.
And I apologize for that. My Polish is not good enough for that.
For such a deep conversation. But yeah, it's absolutely, I think, a lot of takeaways for people. Takeaways, that's it. For people who learn languages, well, particularly Polish, because I think that's our listeners, and lots of inspiration as well. So thank you very, very much.
This was a pleasure, and anybody who wants to, I'm sure, I'll give you my. Well, you have my contact information, and
absolutely.
Where
that's
my
going
YouTube...
to be. It's going to be in the show notes, everything. So it's Etai's Corner. I'm just going to say in case people don't look at the show notes. etaiscorner.net. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's the website. And for the moment and at the moment, and things are constantly changing because the only thing constant is change. But for the moment, as of this recording, you can find me there. You can also find me on, as I mentioned before, for better or worse, on YouTube, where I talk about a number of different things. There's disability advocacy is very big in topic. Languages, you like. You told me that you really appreciate some of my. I have some meditation videos there. I do a little bit of everything there, and I'm also for the moment on Facebook at Etai's Corner and on Instagram. Yeah, as of this recording.
These are the places you can find Etai, and everything has been written down with links as well down where the show notes are in your app, wherever they are. And yeah, thank you very, very much.
My pleasure.
I to już koniec naszej długiej rozmowy. Dowiedziałaś się czegoś ciekawego? Zapraszam Cię też do odwiedzenia kanału Etaia na YouTubie i jego konta na Instagramie. Etai Corner. Linki znajdziesz w opisie odcinka. A ja zapraszam Cię również do zapisania się do mojego newslettera, w którym dzielę się ciekawostkami o polskim języku i kulturze, polecam filmy, seriale i książki, przypominam o nowych odcinkach podcastu i od czasu do czasu daję znać, jak można się ze mną uczyć polskiego. Link do zapisu znajdziesz na mojej stronie polishstories.net i w opisie odcinka. Nie jestem zbyt aktywna w social mediach, więc newsletter jest najlepszym sposobem, by być ze mną w kontakcie. Do usłyszenia.